Sigil's got a way of chewing you up and spitting you out. They call it the City of Doors, but you'd better watch which one you walk through. At the center of it all is her, the Lady of Pain. They say she's untouchable, unknowable, but me? I had a job to do. The client? I didn't know who it was at the time. They left me a cryptic message to investigate the Lady of Pain. A hefty bag of coin and the promise of more answers on a different investigation. It was enough for me to start the chase. I didn't know much where to start, but I saw a group of Davis repairing some cobble streets, and I took the chance to ask questions. You see, the Davis are Sigil's caretakers, and they answer to the lady. Davis patrol the City of Doors to maintain buildings, utilities, roads, things of that type. I figured they should be in the know, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity. How foolish that was. I approached one of the Davis, and it just floated like they owned the place. Probably because they sorta do. The lady's will is their will, after all. I asked it what it could tell me about the lady, but it didn't answer me, at least not directly. These Davis, they don't talk. Not in the typical way. They only communicate in pictures, in these glyphs. And they weren't keen to share anything useful. Either that, or I couldn't decipher it. So I took the investigation to the one place where I knew you could find all sorts of illicit information. The Smoldering Corpse Bar. The place is located in the Hive, the slums of Sigil. So I start asking around about the lady. Some cutters took it as a joke and jabbed at me. Others shared a bit of rumors and speculation. Some of the legends say that the lady's a fiend, a rehab demon come up. Others say she's Sigil itself. Others a forgotten goddess. Not sure what might be truth, and what might be buckets just talking. But many of the people kept saying she's a demon. It kept coming up. What seems to be truth, the lady has quite an aversion to being worshipped. Any Burke that offers even a little prayer to the lady ends up getting boiled alive where they stand. And it might be tempting to worship the lady as a deity too, because she's the reason the cage is what it is. She keeps the relative peace of Sigil. She's why the blood war doesn't spill into the streets, why fiends and celestials pay each other no mind here, why the Githyanki and Mind Flayers don't bring their own war here. The lady is powerful enough to keep even gods and major powers out of Sigil, and she decides who or what has permission to enter the city. The lady leaves the much more mundane crimes and violence to the factions, but the presence of the lady keeps the city running and in order. I found out that Burks who get on the lady's radar will often end up in the mazes, large labyrinthian structures designed to turn those sent there mad, going in circles forever. They say nobody's ever escaped from the lady's mazes, and there's no way to. I wondered if the Davis might have known a way to enter and exit them. Everybody had a story about the lady, none of them good. One thing they all agreed on, you don't go looking for her. Not if you wanted you, or your mind, to stay in one piece. When I asked one Burke if there's anyone that's ever stood up to the lady, tried to usurp her, he turned hostile, warned me that the lady doesn't tolerate curiosity. Him and his looked about ready to fight, when a Davis silently intervened. This fellow was a Davis named Fell, but not one that served the lady anymore. The Burks backed down, and I went with Fell. He seemed to know why I was asking questions, and had some things to say. Lucky me, Fell droned on and on in his symbolic language. He shared a story about how he fell out of the ranks of the Davis, and about a dead god named Eosker. This Eosker was a god of portals, and had set up a temple, the Great Temple of Doors, in the lower ward of the city, all dedicated to his worship, and it worked. He claimed nearly half of Sigil as worshippers, yet the lady did not act, not until Fell declared himself the priest of Eosker. That was a bridge too far for the lady, and the next thing the people knew, Eosker was a floating husk in the astral, and his grand temple was rubble. Fell now runs a magical tattoo shop in the Hive, and will tell any Burke risking a listen about the so-called great majesty of Eosker. I tried and tried, but I wasn't able to get anything else out of him. But the story, it was interesting enough. It was proof of the power of the lady and the evidence of where she drew the line for her interventions. But as I tried to dig deeper, it became clear that Fel had no interest in telling me more about the Lady of Pain. We went in circles, and I asked him where I could find more information. He pointed me to the Hall of Records, though Burke probably thought I couldn't get in. As I left Fel's tattoo shop, I felt like I was being watched. Perhaps I was, and perhaps I wasn't. In any case, it'd become apparent that I had asked too many questions. If only I'd stopped there. I magicked my way into the Hall of Records, a place in the clerk's ward run by the Fated faction. I had some dirt on a cutter who clerked there, and owed me a few favors anyhow. I searched through accounts and records, sifting through dusty tomes about taxes and property disputes. 99% of it was worthless, but 1% of it, now that was interesting. I found some records that appeared to be on Eosker and his temple that looked to be ripped out and charred, like the pages had been burned from existence without setting the whole book ablaze. I hope that wasn't an omen. I dug further, fleeced my way to sections and texts that weren't meant to be seen, but the Fated couldn't help but record. And I did find some cutters that stood up to the lady, and all save one suffered a terrible fate. The first was a mage who was powerful enough to challenge the Lady of Pain herself within Sigil. This mage created a sigil out of Sigil. That's right. He planned on destroying Sigil by making destructive magic out of it. What better way to get at the lady? If she and the city were truly the same, destroying Sigil destroys her. But the lady cast this mage into one of her mazes, a special one inside of a stone. This would come to be known as the Labyrinth Stone, and many a Burke would try to get a hold of it and unlock its secrets. I had heard of the Labyrinth Stone in whispered conversations among Shemeshka's Yugoloth associates. Other mages, by the name of Shekalor and Ravenwood, each independently attempted to get a hold of the Labyrinth Stone and complete the spell, but neither one of them succeeded, each mazed and destroyed. It seemed like a dead end, so I continued on, trying to find any other references to the Lady of Pain's origins. I found a record talking about Plaguemort, a gate town in the Outlands that holds the gate to the Abyss. The ruler of Plaguemort is called the Archlector, who's supposed to answer to the Abyss. Wasn't quite sure what answering to the Abyss meant exactly. Answering to the Abyssal Lords, or in some way answering to the plane itself. Funny thing though, the folks at Plaguemort claimed the Lady of Pain herself was once the Archlector. But if that were true, then she herself would be under the thumb of the Abyss. Was it true? I couldn't know. But I kept running into sources and Burks alike claiming that the lady was a Tenari come up. Just a popular rumor? Or a clue? In either case, I continued my search. I found a text claiming the time another deity entered Sigil. Not Eosker, not some drummed up mortal, a good and proper power. Vecna. I couldn't believe what I was reading. The Undying King himself had entered Sigil, a feat no other power was seemingly able to achieve, and yet he did. I continued on reading exactly how he did it, and what came of it. Clearly, Sigil is still in one piece, so the lady had to have succeeded. And that's when I heard an eerie sound, flapping of fabrics. I looked towards a nearby large stained glass window, and there was a Davis. He was looking right at me, gazing as if he could read my thoughts. And maybe he could. I grabbed the tome I was reading from and ran. I tripped through a long hallway and fumbled for a component, a small feather. I launched myself through an ornate window and fall, hundreds of stories. So I cast Featherfall at the last reasonable moment to avoid becoming the latest Sigil splatter. I hightailed it out of there and back to my office, hoping I have enough clues to put it all together. The Reformed Tenari angle is the rumor I came across most often, and the legend of the lady being the Archlectress of Plaguemort would connect the lady to the Abyss. And if there's one thing I learned in this business, is rumors that keep popping up usually have some truth to them. But Tenari, demons of the Abyss, them, along with their home, their only pattern is chaos. These are demons born of the sin and the hate and the anger of mortals. They evolve and adapt quickly and chaotically, that being their bodies and minds. Tenari are unmitigated evil. They aren't stupid, just stubbornly independent, and their heads are full of nothing but despicable thoughts of violence and worse. Real chaotic types. Wouldn't really be one to take up a truly neutral cause like the Lady of Pain has, but I've heard stories. Stories of Tanari who redeemed themselves, good and proper. In the infinite layers of the abyss, and the endless number of demons, one way for an independent-minded Tanari to stand out would be to buck the trend, to redeem themselves, change their ways, and turn traitor to the abyss. Could be, no real proof, but could be. The power of the Lady seems a little beyond the Tanari though, and the age of Sigil and the Lady, they go back far, maybe even further than the Tanari. And what's older than the Tanari? The Oberith. From my time studying in the Library of Worlds in the city of Timeborn, I learned about the Oberith and their kind. The Oberith are older than we mortals can track. They were occupying the multiverse before even mortals appeared on the material plane. They're akin to primordials or great old ones, and they supposedly created the Tanari. One of these Oberith is the Lady Pale Night, and I couldn't help but notice some similarities between Pale Night and the Lady of Pain, beyond their feminine appearance, flowing robes, and lady moniker. Pale Night has some affinity for mazes. She resides inside of one, on the 600th layer of the abyss. Any advice on not interacting with the Lady of Pain? Do not try to speak with her, do not try to gaze upon her, do not touch her, and do not get in her way, can all be applied to the Lady Pale Night, and the outcomes of such are terrible in both cases. She is as often described as an enigma as often as the Lady of Pain is, and her goals and desires are just as inscrutable. The Lady Pale Night also has the title Mother of Demons, and has been credited with birthing the Tanari herself. Perhaps the Lady of Pain is an Oberith, like the Lady Pale Night. Or perhaps the Lady of Pain is a child of Lady Pale Night. In any case, the two seem cut from a similar cloth. Is that a coincidence, or something more? As I pondered that possibility, I had nearly forgotten about the text that I lifted in my escape from that Davis. Vecna. Vecna had entered the cage, but how? The text was detailed enough for me to glean that Vecna had stolen the power of the demigod Ayuz, and began ascension to greater power. At that moment, and during that transition, Vecna entered Sigil, seemingly able to pass through the lady's defenses, as he was not yet a being of greater power, but soon would be. The sages who wrote this text reported that Vecna also had the help of an entity of magic that was unfathomably old, and with a power level that was great, but unknown. Vecna called it the Serpent. What's more, the text purports this serpent as belonging to a class of entities labeled the Ancient Brethren, and claims that the Lady of Pain was once among their numbers. They make this connection as the language Primeval, a powerful language said to be spoken by the Ancient Brethren and entities that were around when all worlds were young or yet unborn, is spoken by the Lady of Pain in the aftermath of Vecna's expulsion from Sigil. The powerful non-deities of the Ancient Brethren is rumored to include not only the Serpent and the Lady, but Asmodeus. Was this revelation real? Did I imagine it? I couldn't be sure, but I did know I needed to know more, and I knew that I needed to speak directly to Vecna himself. I was resolute to do so, but as I pulled my consciousness back from the words on the page, I again heard an eerie noise and felt someone's powerful gaze. But this time, it was accompanied by the sounds of ancient metal scraping glass. I turned, and there she was, the lady. I nearly froze, but I knew I had to escape. I again ran right out the door and down a hallway, and through another hallway, and through another hallway, but my complex doesn't have this many hallways. I kept going, 10 more hallways down, and I screamed as it dawned on me. The lady mazed me. I put my hands in my face and started sobbing, but I couldn't stop there. I couldn't be mazed. That would make my best bud Pippy sad. I clenched my fist and entered through another door. This was the exit. It had to be. It had to be the exit. I stepped through and I fell. And I fell. And I ended up somewhere else. A plane I had never been to before.